Welcome to Tardisian Files, a show dedicated to reviewing and discussing aspects of one of the most loved and longest-running British sci-fi shows. This podcast is a fan-led series where we pull together sources from all across Doctor Who's extended media, including the show itself, comics, audio stories, and novels. In today's episode, we will continue to ponder the question, what if the Doctor hadn't met Donna Noble for a second time? And we'll discuss how this may have affected the events of the Doctor's daughter, leading off of last time's scenario, where we see the Doctor and Martha being dragged away from present-day Earth, having just defeated the Sontarans. Without further ado, let's get into the scenario. The TARDIS is in flight, violently throwing Martha and the Doctor around the console room. The Doctor remarks that even though his old hand is very excited about it, he has no idea where they're going to land. Eventually, the TARDIS lands. The Doctor and Martha look at one another hesitantly. Martha eventually breaks the silence by breaking into a smile, thrilled by the prospect of seeing an alien planet after all this time. They exit and find themselves in what looks like an underground tunnel, with futuristic technology strewn around the place, including what looks like a sealed booth connecting to a large machine with a small hatch. Suddenly, a group of soldiers, led by a young man called Klein, surround the two. The Doctor and Martha show that they are unarmed, holding their hands up. However, the soldiers notice their hands are clean. So Klein orders the Doctor to be processed. The Doctor is dragged over to the strange machine and his hand is forcibly shoved into the hatch. He yells as the machine hisses and cuts his hand. He staggers back and he and Martha watch as the adjacent booth hisses. Its door opens. Inside the booth is filled with steam. Out of the steam from within, a blonde athletic woman steps out, wearing full combat gear. The human soldiers hand her a gun, while Martha asks the Doctor who this strange woman is. Stunned, the Doctor explains that the machine is a parthenogenesis machine, which means that this mysterious woman is, biologically, his daughter. After a brief hello from Dr. Jr., one of the soldiers exclaims, as another group of soldiers, resembling fishmen, storm the tunnel. Now, the first question in this scenario is Martha still taken? Yes. Considering there's no reason why Donna's absence would prevent Martha's capture, this point in time remains intact. In the midst of the chaos, Klein's men are shot, and the Doctor's daughter sets off the explosives, caving in the tunnel, with Martha trapped on the other side with the Hath. The Doctor yells at his daughter, asking her why she did that, to which she simply replies that it was because the Hath were shooting at them. She considers Martha to be nothing more than collateral damage. Despite the more militant attitude of this alternate version of the Doctor, he is still disgusted at her and Klein's attitudes, even more so than in the original timeline, as he's seeing in his daughter the same qualities that he himself has been exhibiting far too much recently. Before he can leave, however, Klein points a gun at him, declaring that the Doctor will be taken to General Cobb for interrogation. The Doctor notes that neither Klein nor his daughter understands the concept of neutrality or pacifism. Meanwhile, Martha finds herself on the other side of the rubble, with the TARDIS and the Hath who kidnapped her. Seeing that the alien is injured, she tells him to stay still, and starts examining his shoulder, which she discovers was dislocated in the blast. More Hath arrive and point their guns at her, but despite this, Martha tells them that she is a doctor, and she is trying to help their injured comrade. After Martha fixes his shoulder, the Hath, Peck, signals to his fellow Hath that Martha is an ally, and they take her through their own side of the tunnel. Meanwhile, Klein and the Doctor's daughter lead him to their camp. Without Donna, the Doctor does not make a conversation with his daughter, but instead tries to get information from Klein. Klein explains they are on Messalane, and that they are a human colony at war with the Hath. They take him to their camp, in reality a converted theatre hall, where they meet General Cobb. Klein calls the Doctor a pacifist, prompting Cobb to believe that he is a descendant of the pacifist group that broke off from the army 3 generations back. The Doctor does not correct him, instead going along with this as a ruse to learn more information. At the same time, the Hath bring Martha to their camp, the other Hath coming over to greet her warmly, happy to have a medic amongst them. During this time, the Doctor learns that the soldiers are descendants of human colonists, who came to Messalane with the Hath, who ended up falling out due to the Hath wanting the entire planet for themselves. He also learns that the soldiers have a sense of religion, and that they are searching for a holy object called the Source, to help them defeat the Hath. Without Donna, the Doctor doesn't notice plot holes in this origin story, such as the buildings having windows, despite the surface being uninhabitable. General Cobb shows him a map. Meanwhile, Martha sees the same map in the Hath camp, but cannot work out the exact route the Hath need, as they only have half of the map. The Doctor notices this, and he sonics the map, revealing the other missing half to both the humans and the Hath armies. Both the Hath and the humans prepare to move out, and converge on the Source based on this new information. At the Hath camp, Martha is put to work, tending to the wounded Hath, with Peck as her assistant. Back at the human camp, the Doctor's daughter has now been randomly assigned the name Jenny by the human army. The Doctor and General Cobb are in a heated conversation, where the Doctor is trying and failing to convince General Cobb not to engage with the Hath with violence, instead trying to come up with a peaceful solution. General Cobb fails to see reason, and he declares that Jenny is from pacifist stock. He orders his men to throw both the Doctor and Jenny into the cells. Without Donna, the Doctor is unable to contact Martha to see if she is alright, prompting him to finally speak to Jenny properly to see if they can both come up with an escape plan, realising that he may benefit from her programmed military knowledge. Meanwhile, Martha and Peck still plan to prevent a war by reaching the Source first. Martha sees on a 3D version of the map that Peck pulls up that they can safely venture out onto the surface and make their way to the Source before the Hath and the humans reach it. Meanwhile, the Doctor also reaches the conclusion that he can venture out onto the surface, expecting to use his radiation tolerance and respiratory bypass system to survive on the inhospitable surface. Despite clashing with Jenny over whether he is a soldier, she still comes up with a decent escape plan, which she puts into motion before she explains it to the Doctor. She cheekily seduces Klein and knocks him out, and they break out of the cell, taking his gun in the process. Upon escaping, Jenny knocks out 2 more guards, earning a scolding from the 10th Doctor, though she does acquire a copy of the map and a communicator. Unlike the original timeline, it's at this stage that the Doctor uses the communicator to reach Martha, who's already with Peck and about to exit onto the surface. Martha explains to the Doctor what happened back at the Hath camp, revealing that when he revealed the other half of the map to the humans, he also accidentally revealed it to the Hath army as well. Martha also introduces the Doctor to Peck, and thanks to the Doctor's language proficiency, he is able to communicate with the Hath soldier. They agree to meet at a rendezvous point on the surface. Because of this, Peck and Martha end up taking a slightly different route, which means later, Peck won't fall into the quicksand, and die like he did in the original timeline. During the Doctor and Jenny's escape, they come up against the laser security grid, with Cobb and his army slowly breaking down the door, separating them. Jenny prepares for a skirmish, but the Doctor harshly orders her to stand down, briefly being reminded of himself during the Time War. Flashing back to the present, the Doctor decides to teach Jenny the art of escaping. Giving her the sonic screwdriver, he walks her through how to deactivate the lasers. They then escape just as Cobb breaks through. However, Jenny isn't lectured by him in this timeline. This starts to blur Jenny's beliefs even still, as the Doctor explains that as they escape, that avoiding a fight is smarter and braver than entering one, as it saves lives. Even without Donna, the Doctor ends up assuming a level of responsibility over Jenny, as she's proven to be resourceful, and she can be taught. However, the ice isn't broken as quickly between them without Donna, so he is still harsh with her. Meanwhile, on the surface, Martha and Peck are astonished of how close the spaceship is to the camp. Hearing an echo in the back of his mind, Peck pulls Martha to one side, just as the ground beneath her shifts, causing the mud to fall down into a quicksand pit below. He doesn't realise it, but he's just saved both of their lives. They've reached the rendezvous point, a hatch leading to the human camp. At the bottom of the same hatch, the Doctor is hastily teaching Jenny how to use her respiratory bypass system. He's expecting a completely hostile environment. He's cut off when the top of the hatch opens, and Martha and Peck are standing there, unharmed and seemingly unaffected by the so-called inhospitable environment. Astonished, the Doctor realises that the humans' and Hath's history has been distorted heavily, leading them to believe that the surface was completely inhospitable, when in reality, the only really hazardous environmental element is the spikes in radiation that the planet experiences. This prompts the Doctor to believe that the war has been going on for a long time. However, when they reach the ship, they find that it is in tip-top condition, despite supposedly being abandoned for years. They also discover the ship's computer, which tells them that the original commander died of Byzantine fever, causing a power vacuum which eventually led to the war between the Hath and the humans. However, without Donna, they failed to realise that the war had only started 7 days ago. This would have serious impacts for the negotiations between the Hath and the humans that would come shortly after. Hearing the Hath and human armies slowly breaking their way into their temple, the four of them race to the top of the ship, where they find the object of both the Hath and humans' distorted religion, the Source, which the Doctor immediately recognises not to be a weapon of any kind, but instead a terraforming matrix, the key to making Messalane habitable again. Like in the original timeline, the Doctor realises that the two sides' histories must have been distorted when the original colonists died, leaving the troops generated from the parthenogenesis machines with inaccurate information. Eventually, the human and Hath armies arrive, surrounding Martha, the Doctor, Peck, and Jenny. They look at the four of them, and wonder if the map that they were given earlier was intended to lead them into a trap, and so that they'd end up wiping each other out. Instead, the Doctor explains everything, and says that while they cannot erase the countless years, as he believes, of bloodshed, they can start this world anew. The Doctor then picks up the terraforming device and shatters it on the ground, releasing the gas. Unfortunately, this message doesn't strike the same chord as in the original timeline, as the futility of the war is not highlighted enough, as the Doctor is unaware that it has not been years, but actually has only been 7 days. Both armies refuse to stand down, as they still aren't convinced that the other side won't just try and take over the planet once the terraforming is finished. Guns are raised, and both sides is itching for another fight. However, before either of them fires, an unlikely hero comes to the rescue. It's Peck. This is where we see his presence in this new timeline begin to really affect the outcome of events. He stands up to his fellow Hath and reminds them that Martha, a human doctor, healed him without thinking about it, and she even went as far as to tending to their wounded and helping them with the map. Jenny also steps forward and surprises the Doctor completely by talking up to the human army, telling them all she's learnt about diplomacy and avoiding a fight. Going further, she says that this all got her thinking. If not fighting allowed her to reach the ship quicker than the fighting would have done, surely the war would end if they just stopped fighting, especially how they know that the Source isn't and never was a weapon. All the naive humans in Hath lay down their weapons, except for General Cobb. Enraged by his war ending, Cobb fires his gun at the Doctor, but just as he moves to fire, Jenny steps in front of the Doctor. She's shot. Cobb is restrained by his own men. Before dying, the Doctor begs her not to die, feeling the loss of his family all over again, once again seeing the Time War in his mind. Jenny dies, and Martha informs the Doctor that she won't regenerate. She wasn't enough like him. Unlike the original timeline, the Doctor's thoughts are altered after all the bloodshed he's just seen with Atmos. Instead of thinking, she was too much like me, he thinks, she was just like me, and I'm not enough like her. He grabs the gun and presses it to General Cobb's head. Does he shoot? No. But he won't go easy on him either. The Doctor barks an order at the humans, going off what he knows about military code and non-lethal punishment. He states that Cobb is a threat to the peace and must stand trial for all the times he could have ended the war, but didn't. Martha tries to protest, saying surely the Hath leader ought to face the same trial, but the Doctor replies that the Hath general stood down. Cobb didn't. He must be made an example of. Later, back at the TARDIS, the Doctor is brooding, realising the TARDIS was drawn by Jenny's creation to this place in time, only to become the reason why the Doctor was there to be processed in the first place. An endless paradox. Noting his dissociation ever since Atmos, Martha offers the Doctor one more trip to help him start feeling like his old self again. The Doctor smiles, and they leave. And just like in the original timeline, Jenny resurrects in front of Klein and a Hath, surprising them both as she makes her way to the nearest space shuttle. She switches on the engine and tells Klein and the Hath that she has places to go and worlds to save. The shuttle launches and she goes out to explore the universe of 6012 AD. And that brings us to the end of today's scenario. As we can see, even though more of the characters are being saved, the Doctor is being more and more negatively impacted, without the presence of Donna Noble to ground him. Now, we might see that in the next episode, with Martha there, perhaps he'll be a bit more grounded. Perhaps he'll start acting more like his old self. But his tendencies from the Time War and his previous incarnation are rearing once more. How will this affect the 10th Doctor's character development? Find out next time on the next episode of Doctor What If. If you enjoyed today's scenario, please leave a like and tell your friends. You can check out some of our other material either on Spotify or Google Podcasts. You can also follow our Instagram page at Tardisian Files Podcasts for regular updates and news about upcoming content. As always, join us next time on Tardisian Files. See you then, everyone!